The sun was blood on the horizon when they took me. I'd ridden out ahead of our wagon party, just to find water. The others had started settling down for the night. My uncle was digging a trench for a fire pit, my cousin scraping beans into a pot. I told them I'd be back in an hour. My horse, Daisy, moved quiet under me. We were near a creek, nestled deep in the cottonwoods, where the only sound were frogs croaking in the whisper of wind over dry grass. That was when I felt it. Not heard, felt, like the air itself thickened. Daisy stopped, ears twitching, her body tensed. I reached for my rifle. Too late. A blur dropped from the trees above me. I hit the ground hard, head ringing. Hands grabbed my arms, legs. Voices, low, harsh foreign. My rifle was kicked away. Daisy screamed and bolted. I barely saw her go before a boot pressed down on my chest, pinning me to the earth. I counted 5 men, faces painted in ochre and black, eyes like flint. One wore a feather war bonnet, and a necklace of claws rested on his bare chest. He was older than the rest, and when he looked at me, I knew he was the one in charge. I'd heard stories about Comanche raids. I knew what happened to captives. I tried not to shake, but fear crept in cold and steady. The man with the war bonnet squatted beside me. "Name," he said, rough but clear. "Caleb." I croaked, "Caleb Walker." He grunted, motioned to the others. One of them took my belt knife. Another rifled through my satchel. Pulling out a photo of my mother, they stared at it like it was sorcery. I was tied at the wrists and ankles, tossed onto the back of a paint pony like a sack of wheat. They moved fast, slipping through the trees, vanishing like ghosts. I tried to count the direction, the turns, the time, but dusk fell quickly, and the stars didn't wait for me. By nightfall, we reached their camp. It wasn't what I expected. No savagery, no chaos, just quiet rhythm. Women stirring pots over open flames, children playing with sticks, and elders singing softly. But every pair of eyes that turned to me was wary, hard. I was dumped near a circle of stones and left alone. For a moment, the firelight made me feel warm. Then I realized what the stones were for: judgment, maybe execution. Then I saw her. She stood across the fire, wrapped in a blanket of dark blue wool, trimmed with red. Her long black hair moved like a waterfall in the breeze. She couldn't have been more than 17, younger than me, but her eyes looked like storm clouds. Deep, dark, watching everything and revealing nothing. She stepped forward, only a little, her gaze locked on mine, not with hate, but something else. Curiosity? Pity? Then a voice barked, and she turned away. They didn't feed me that night. My wrists were tied to a post, legs bound beneath me. Sleep came in fits. I dreamed of rattlesnakes and flames, and the sound of Daisy's hooves galloping away. Morning brought pain. My wrists were raw, my mouth dry. A boy, no older than 10, approached and stared at me. He had a stone knife in one hand, a piece of meat in the other. Slowly, he knelt and held out the food. Before I could reach it, an older warrior shouted and smacked the boy away. The meat hit the dirt. I lunged anyway, teeth sinking into the dusty strip. Pride meant nothing anymore. By the 3rd day, I stopped counting the sunrises. I learned the war bonnet man was Chief Taute. He said little, but his presence was a storm front. Silent, heavy, dangerous. One of his warriors, a brute called Raging Bear, took pleasure in shoving me around, barking insults in Comanche I couldn't understand. But she was always watching. The girl in blue. Her name came to me whispered by the wind. Ayoka. She never spoke to me. Not yet. But she lingered near the cooking fires when I was dragged out for water. She glanced over her shoulder as she walked past, always too fast to be caught, but too often to be chance. I held on to that. A thread, a flicker, until the 4th night. That evening, I was untied and brought before the fire circle. Warriors sat around me, eating, sharpening blades. Raging Bear tossed something at my feet, a wooden spear. Then he handed one to a boy half my size. "Fight," he said in English, grinning with teeth that were too white. It was a game to them, or a lesson. I picked up the spear. The boy came fast, surprisingly strong. I blocked, parried, tripped him, but didn't strike. I couldn't. He got up again and again, until finally he slipped and struck his head on a rock. Blood ran from his temple. The camp fell silent. I dropped my weapon and raised my hands. I didn't mean to. A howl tore through the air. Raging Bear lunged. I braced for pain, but it didn't come. A voice rang out. Sharp. Clear. Stop. Everyone turned. Ayoka stood between us, arms folded. Her voice didn't tremble. Tate rose slowly from his seat. His eyes went from me to his daughter. I expected him to drag her away, but he said something in Comanche, low and deliberate. The crowd dispersed. Raging Bear spat near my feet, but left. Ayoka didn't look at me. She just turned and walked off into the dark. But she'd saved me. For the first time since I'd been captured, I wasn't just prey. I was part of something now. A story, maybe a warning, or a beginning. The fire crackled behind me. Somewhere in the dark, a wolf howled, and I wasn't sure if it was mourning me or welcoming me. They moved me to a different part of the camp after that night, closer to the elders, farther from the warriors. My hands were still bound, but looser now, as if they'd started to question whether I needed to be tied at all. No one spoke to me. No one beat me. But they watched me. Every step I took, every breath. I could feel it. She was the only one who looked at me like I was a person. Ayoka. She would appear like mist, silent, sudden, by the fire, near the horses, standing in the shadows of a buffalo hide tent, always watching. I tried to meet her eyes, but the moment I did, she'd look away. Still, she never stopped showing up. The tension in the camp was thicker than smoke. Raging Bear's glares turned colder. Even Chief Tate grew quieter, if that was possible. Something unspoken was stirring. Something dangerous. On the 6th day, the storm broke. I was sitting near the fire, hands resting on my knees, when she came over, just walked up, no hesitation. She knelt beside me, placed a bowl of water and a flatbread in my lap, then sat down. The camp froze. All eyes turned. She didn't care. I'm not supposed to talk to you, she said, barely above a whisper. But I'm tired of listening to old men speak in circles. I blinked, stunned. You speak English? Her lips curved slightly. Missionary. 2 winters ago. He taught me letters. Then we burned his Bible. That smile. Dry. Sharp. But there was hurt behind it. Her eyes didn't sparkle. They churned. I took the bread. Thank you. You're not like the others, she said. You don't scream. You don't beg. I figured it wouldn't help. Most think it does. You didn't even try to run. I had nowhere to go. She stared into the fire. That's honest. The silence between us grew warm, almost comfortable. You saved me, I said. I didn't do it for you, she replied quickly. Raging Bear's a fool. He wants war. He thinks killing you brings honor. And you don't. I think killing you is easy. Her gaze snapped back to mine. But understanding you, that's hard. I didn't know how to answer, so I just nodded. That seemed enough for her. That night, she came back. Same spot. Brought herbs for my wrists and a strip of smoked meat. We didn't speak much. Just sat. The next night, again, then again. Her presence became a rhythm, like the steady beat of a drum beneath the chaos of my thoughts. She told me about her sister, taken by settlers during a raid that went wrong. Never found. That grief lived behind her every word. I told her about my brother, frozen in a Missouri winter while I went off to hunt rabbits. Guilt, like frostbite, never truly left. Maybe we're both just ghosts wearing skin, I said once. She didn't laugh, but she didn't walk away either. Each time she left, I watched the space she'd been like I could remember her shape. I wanted to say more, ask why she kept coming, why she stayed. But something told me that speaking it out loud would break the fragile thing we were building. On the 10th night, we heard drums, not the soft, ceremonial kind. These were war drums, low, pulsing, relentless. Warriors painted their faces again. Horses were saddled. Fires burned hotter. and I noticed Chief Tate staring longer at his daughter, like he saw something shifting, like he already knew. Raging Bear approached the fire that night, with fresh scar down his cheek. His eyes locked onto Ayoka as she sat beside me and his jaw clenched. He said nothing, but that silence, it was louder than thunder. Later, when the camp slept, Ayoka whispered, "They won't let you live much longer." I swallowed hard. "Then why do you keep risking yourself?" She hesitated. "Because I dream in two worlds now." "What does that mean?" She looked at me like she wasn't sure herself. "I see the river. You on one side, me on the other, and the water rises." I reached out, slowly. My fingers brushed hers. She didn't pull away. "I don't want to drown," I said. "Then learn to swim." The wind picked up. Somewhere an owl called, low and haunting. We sat there, hands almost touching, until her father's voice echoed from his tent. "Ayoka!" She flinched, stood, and just before she left, she leaned in close and whispered, "Tomorrow, meet me by the horses, before sunrise." She was gone before I could respond. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on my side, heart thudding, staring at the stars, wondering if this was a trap, if she was testing me, if I even cared. Dawn came wrapped in cold mist. I crept away from the fire pit, past snoring warriors and snorting ponies. My feet were quiet, my breath silent. She was there, wrapped in furs, holding the reins of two horses. One was Daisy. Somehow they'd caught her. Somehow she'd brought her back. "You don't belong here," she said. "You do." "I belong nowhere," she whispered. "But I'd rather ride into nowhere than watch them bury you." "You're coming with me?" "Yes." My heart stuttered. "Why?" "Because if I stay, they kill the part of me that understands you." Before I could speak again, a shout cut through the fog. "Thief!" Raging Bear, awake, charging, his blade drawn. Ayoka shoved me onto Daisy's saddle. "Ride!" We kicked into motion. Hooves tore the earth. The camp erupted behind us. Arrows sang through the air. One sliced past my cheek, hot and fast. We didn't look back. Trees blurred. The world narrowed to hoofbeats and her breath beside me. We rode hard, fast, like the devil himself was giving chase. But before we could cross the river, they caught us. They surrounded us before we reached the river. 6 riders, fast and silent, like ghosts in buckskin. Raging Bear led them, his face streaked in red war paint, eyes gleaming with the hunger of vengeance. Ayoka pulled her horse in front of mine, shielding me, even as her breath came in tight gasps. "Don't," she warned them, voice firm. Raging Bear dismounted, slow, deliberate. His blade glinted under the morning sun. "You've shamed your blood," he spat. "You ride with a dog." "He's not your prisoner," she replied. "He's mine." The words echoed like a challenge. The others shifted, unsure, eyes flicking to each other. But Raging Bear had already made his choice. He lunged. I barely saw him coming. I rolled off Daisy's saddle, hit the dirt hard, and scrambled to my feet. The spear I'd taken from the camp was still strapped to my back. I yanked it free as he charged. Our weapons clashed. Wood struck metal. Sparks flew. He was stronger, faster, but I had desperation. I blocked one blow, parried another. Then his elbow cracked into my jaw, dropping me to my knees. The blade followed. Ayoka screamed. Time bent. I rolled, dirt in my teeth, and slammed the spear upward, not into his heart, just his shoulder, enough to make him stumble back, growling like a wounded wolf. "Stop!" Chief Tate's voice cut through the air like a whip. The riders parted. The chief rode into the clearing, flanked by 2 elders. His face was carved from stone, unmoved by the blood or the betrayal. Ayoka stood tall, though her breath shook. "He is not the enemy." Tate dismounted, walked past Raging Bear, and looked at me. I stood, barely, arms trembling, lips split. He said nothing, just stared. The wind rustled the leaves above us like distant applause. "He's taken your daughter," Raging Bear hissed. I gave myself to him. Ayoka said. That silence returned. Thick, crushing. You defy your tribe, your family. Tate said at last. I choose him, she said. Her voice didn't waver. He looked at her for a long time. Pain flickered in his eyes, barely there. Then he turned to me. If you stay, you die, he said. If you run, you will always be hunted. I nodded. I never asked for your mercy. He tilted his head. Good, because I offer none. He looked back at his daughter. You will go, now, with him, and you will not return. Ayoka swallowed. Her chin trembled. I understand. Tate looked at the elders, gave a single nod, and turned away. Raging Bear stood frozen, teeth clenched, bleeding from the shoulder. You let them leave? He snarled. The chief didn't answer. His silence was the answer. The riders vanished into the trees, shadows retreating with the sun. Only one stayed. Raging Bear. He watched us mount up again, hand pressed his wound. This isn't over, he said. I met his eyes. It's never over. We rode, not in triumph, not in peace, just forward. The land opened up before us. Rolling plains, distant hills, the river winding like a silver thread. We rode until the horses staggered, until our legs burned and our hands blistered. We found shelter in a ravine, hidden by red rock and wild sage. There we made camp. For 3 days we spoke little. Survival came first, water, food, fire. But the silence between us wasn't cold. It was tender, careful. On the 4th night, she broke it. I dreamed of fire. I looked up from the sparks rising from our campfire. Another river dream? No, this one burned. She sat beside me, the blanket draped over her shoulders. In the dream, we stood surrounded by flames. Everyone I loved, on one side, you on the other, and I couldn't move. I reached for her hand. And now, I ran through it, she said softly. I'm still burning. I leaned closer. Our foreheads touched. For a moment, the world quieted. No drums, no hoofbeats, just breath and warmth. Marry me, I whispered. She looked at me, eyes wide. I don't have land or a preacher or a ring, but I have this life, yours if you want it. Her lips trembled into a smile. You really are foolish. Is that a yes? She kissed me, fierce, fast and full of fire. We spoke vows into the wind, under a sky littered with stars. No witnesses but the coyotes, no music but the rustling grass. But it was real, more real than any church ceremony I'd ever seen. Days passed. We moved camp, built a shelter, caught rabbits, gathered berries, survived, but the peace didn't last. One afternoon, as I was stringing a snare, I saw movement near the ridge. 3 riders. I froze, motioned to Ayoka. She grabbed a rifle, my old one, returned by her in secret, and crouched low. They weren't Comanche. They were white. Hunters, by the look of them. Grimy, armed. They saw the smoke from our fire. They approached slowly, rifles drawn. I stepped out. One man squinted. You Caleb Walker? I nodded, grip tightening. We found your wagon train. About 2 weeks back. Thought you were dead. I was. They looked at Ayoka, who stood tall beside me. One raised a brow. That your squaw? She's my wife. That changed their tone. One man spit. Didn't figure you for one of them lovers. I stepped forward. You figured wrong. Another chuckled. You gonna stick with her when things get cold? When the food runs out? I'll stick with her when bullets fly. The third man leaned on his rifle. There's a settlement west of here. You come in with her, there'll be questions. Maybe worse. I'm used to worse. They stared at me like I was some kind of ghost. Then one shook his head. Suit yourself. They rode off, muttering. When they were gone, Ayoka said nothing, just stared at the fire. You okay? I asked. She nodded, but her hand found mine. That night, neither of us slept well. We knew now. It wasn't just a Comanche who'd chase us. The whole world would. Winter crept in quietly, like a hunter stalking prey. The wind shifted first, colder, sharper. Then the trees turned brittle and the rivers slowed. Our little camp, tucked in the arms of a canyon, grew smaller each day as the snow came down, layer by silent layer. Food was harder to find, fire harder to start. But we endured, because she was with me. Ayoka moved through the frost like she belonged to it, wrapped in furs, face dusted with snow. She hunted, trapped, skinned, taught me herbs that soothed fever and bark that held warmth. She'd hum songs at night, old ones, Comanche lullabies her mother used to sing. I didn't understand the words, but I didn't need to. They wrapped around me like a shield. One night, her breath came fast, her hand on her belly. Pain bent her in two. I dropped everything, rushed to her side. "It's time," she gasped. We had no midwife, no warm bed, no safety, just each other. She screamed through the night. I held her hand, soaked with sweat, whispering prayers I didn't believe and promises I swore to keep. And then, just before dawn, I heard a sound that didn't belong to the wind. A cry, tiny, fierce. A girl. Ayoka cradled her, face pale but shining. I wrapped them both in everything we owned, furs, blankets, even my coat. She named the baby Taysai, meaning between two worlds. Fitting. She had Ayoka's stormy eyes and a little dimple on her chin that hadn't come from me. For a while we lived in quiet joy. The fire crackled, Taysai gurgled, and Ayoka smiled like she never had before. We were poor and hunted and buried in snow, but we were whole, until hoofbeats shattered the silence. I heard them before I saw them, distant thunder rolling over the hills. I stepped out, rifle in hand, squinting against the wind. 3 riders. No, 5, all Comanche. At the front, Raging Bear. His arm was wrapped in cloth, scarred, but his eyes burned bright with fury. He hadn't forgotten. I didn't know how he found us, but he had. I called for Ayoka. She came out. Taysai pressed her chest, her face unreadable. "They will kill us," I said. "No," she replied, voice steady. "They'll try." I gave her the rifle, took the bow. We had a few arrows, 2 knives, and the land. That would have to be enough. The riders approached slowly, like wolves closing in. Raging Bear dismounted 20 paces from us. "You broke the circle," he growled. "She was promised to me. She was never yours." I said, "She was tribe." "She still is," Ayoka said, "even if you won't see it." "You had a child with a settler," he spat. "You've tainted your blood. She's more Comanche than you'll ever be." I snapped, because she was born of choice, not control. Raging Bear's hand dropped to his blade. I raised my bow. A tense second passed, the kind that could stretch into eternity or vanish in a heartbeat. Then he charged. I loosed an arrow. Missed. He tackled me to the ground, knife flashing. I grabbed his wrist. We rolled, fists in fury, crashing into the snow. His blade sliced across my ribs. Pain lit me up. I headbutt him. He grunted. I drove my knee into his gut. But he kept coming, a force of vengeance, not flesh. Behind us, I heard a shot. Ayoka. One of the warriors dropped. The others hesitated. She fired again. Another fell. I slammed Raging Bear's arm down, forcing the blade into the ground. He roared, broke free, and raised a knife. "Caleb!" Ayoka screamed. I twisted. The knife came down, slashed my shoulder, but not deep. I punched him, grabbed his wrist, and turned it until bones popped. He screamed. Then I heard Taysai cry, and that gave me strength I didn't know I had. I drove him back with a fury born of fire and fear and love. We grappled until I got his knife and buried it into the earth beside his head. "I don't want to kill you," I said through clenched teeth. He stared up at me, chest heaving, face bloodied. "You already did." He spat, rolled over, didn't rise. The remaining warriors turned, looked to Ayoka, rifle still raised, smoke curling from the barrel. They didn't attack. They didn't speak. They just rode off. Raging Bear stayed down, breathing but broken. We didn't follow. We didn't flee. We just stood there, me bleeding, Ayoka holding Taysai. Wind howled like the spirits were watching. That night, we burned everything we couldn't carry. We moved west, over the mountains, across rivers, through valleys where no flags flew. We found a meadow where the earth was soft, and the air smelled like new beginnings. There we built a home, a real one, with a door and a roof, and a hearth where our daughter took her first steps. I raised crops. Ayoka raised chickens. Taysai raised hell. Sometimes I'd wake to the wind whispering stories I couldn't understand. Sometimes Ayoka would sit alone and stare east. But always we came back to each other. We didn't forget the fire. We became it. Years later, a stranger passed through, a traveler, lost, curious. I shared our tale beside the fire. He said it sounded like legend, like myth, but I was there. And I'll say this, if the world tells you to stay in your place, burn the place down, because love doesn't ask for permission. It simply is. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Somewhere out there, the wind still carries our names. And if you listen close, you'll hear it. We were the storm.